Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the latest Security Risk Management webinar, Mastering ISO 27001 with Stream, Strengthening Your Information Security Management. We're delighted to have you with us today. My name's Linda Chamberlain, and I'm the Head of Marketing here at Acuity. And today I'm with our Account Executive, Daniel Goodwin.
Hello, everyone. Good to be here, as always.
Hi, Daniel. So for today's agenda, Daniel will give you a quick introduction to Acuity. He will then cover how you can avoid common pitfalls in scoping and control mapping and stay audit ready all year round. He'll also give a dive into key insights around ISO 27001, including why certification matters, full certification journey, how to maintain ongoing compliance, and Stream tips to make it all easier. He'll then finish up with a quick demo of ISO 27001 control assessments. So just a few housekeeping asks, please. If you have a technical issue, please let us know using a chat function. If you have any questions, please pop them in the chat and we'll have a Q&A at the end of the webinar. Thank you, and over to you, Daniel.
Brilliant. Well, to start with, let's get the screen shared. So, Linda, if you can just let me know if we're sharing.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, great start as always. So, welcome everybody to another Acuity webinar. We're going to go over a couple of the basics to start with, have a look at some more sort of detailed talking points around ISO 27001 and Stream, and then it would be absolutely fantastic if we can do a quick run through, ideally relating to what we've talked about, to the platform. Before we get into that, just an introduction into who we are in case you don't know. So Acuity Risk Management, we've been around for a while now, about 20 years. We're full of some absolutely exceptional talent that have a fantastic knowledge and a really, really good background in risk management, compliance, and everything in between. We leverage that a lot with the customers we work with and our new customers to build a really, really effective tool and also work as partners, really, taking people along a very, very long and arduous journey to either get certified or just maintain their current day-to-day processes. So lots of experience and a really, really rich history behind us for sure, and it's definitely impacted the way we work now. Introduction to myself. So I am an account executive here at Acuity. I work with new implementations, implementation projects, and also with the existing client base. So much of my knowledge, much of what I like to talk about and what I'll be talking about today is built off that knowledge, much of it being real-world experience as well. If there's any questions directly to me or that you may have during the entire presentation, feel free to pop those in the chat or contact us with any of the contact emails provided throughout. I'm sure if you want to, you can absolutely find that. So let's just have a quick run through the agenda today. So we're going to have a look at why ISO 27001 matters. If you're not familiar with ISO 27001, which would be quite surprising, but it's okay, we'll be taking a little run through of that as well. We'll look at the journey and how we maintain certification, and then we'll go on to tips using Stream, which is our compliance platform, and then we'll open up to a Q&A at the end. So ISO 27001, what is it? ISO 27001 takes lots of different forms, very much depending on what area of a business or what area of an organization you might work in, which is something that a lot of people initially scratch their head with, but it makes a lot of sense when you really think about it. The main thing is, though, it's a badge, right? It's a certificate of security and good practice. That certificate has lots of meanings to it. Yes, it means that you're enforcing good practice as a business, but it's also perhaps the ticket to win the contract or what keeps your reputation in good order with your existing client base. The influences are absolutely massive, and of course this is felt not just around IT, but across all different areas and departments too. As I sort of mentioned, it builds a lot of trust, and that's really quite key. Another key thing as well is that it gives you that added security for the future and the people that you work with. It gives security to them too, and gives you good practice to protect sensitive data and systems. Another quite key thing as well is that when it comes to legal and regulatory compliance, it's often used as the proof in the pudding. Certainly within the UK, there's lots and lots of requirements, particularly around data, around common business practice, and something like ISO 27001 is one of the ways you can demonstrate that you're following law and regulations. Key thing as well, and I really, really want to stress this, is that it does enhance your reputation and enforces your market position. Now, why is it important, considering most of the people I talk to are information security professionals or risk managers or CISOs, etc.? Well, this is what will drive investment into your teams, and being able to effectively link, not just from a thought leadership point of view, but in a practical point of view, linking ISO 27001 compliance, the assessments that follow, and actions that take place with direct business objectives is what promotes investment. And it also is one of the things that kicks people up the back to get on with that action that they need to do or fill in an assessment on time. The other key thing as well is that it's, for the most part, there's a few exceptions, but it is globally recognized, certainly in the average supply chain, certainly in the average North American, South American, European, African, Asian company, oceanic as well, not to exclude them. It's globally recognized, and it's something that you can leverage absolutely everywhere. And the other key thing is that it's certifiable. You can't just say, we are ISO 27001 compliant without demonstrating that you have received a certificate in compliance. Now, this is, of course, easier said than done, and it's part of the problem that some people have with ISO 27001, and I'll be talking about that a little bit more later. Now, barriers to entry, which there are many with ISO 27001, particularly in small to medium enterprises, but absolutely within larger enterprises too that are starting perhaps a little bit late to the party. First things first, the cost and resources should not be underestimated. They absolutely scale with the size of the business too, and certainly depending on the type of business you have or type of organization you're working with, it can absolutely change. Some businesses I've seen have a very, very simple, easy, and to be honest, quite a dreamable use case to getting ISO 27001 certified. It's very simple. Others, perhaps maybe that are working with a lot more data, or perhaps maybe information security providers, this is a completely different can of worms, and it requires a lot of thought and proper preparation too. And it's not an easy thing to do either. Implementation complexity is absolutely simplifying it. It requires a cross-department effort to culture shift the entire business to get into the same strategy, which is, again, very much easier said than done. The other thing as well that shouldn't be underestimated is the knowledge base required to do something like this effectively. It's very difficult to just thrust, we're going to have ISO 27001 certification on a team of people that have never got ISO 27001 certification before. It requires a lot of resources, perhaps training, external consultancies, and certainly someone to hold your hand at some point of the journey. And another big thing as well is the actual sheer workload. I've mentioned the costs and the resources and the implementation complexity. But another massive thing that's underestimated, and actually a lot of the reasons why people that are certified end up losing their certification, is that audit trail and that documentation trail. Adding a new process or catching up with previous documentation requires a lot of time, and it is by far the #1 complaint that people who primarily work on ISO 27001 have about this certification. Keeping up to date is not easy to do manually, and it's something that lots of different tools will offer the penultimate solution to fixing. But the reality is, even if you have the best tool in the world, if you're not keeping up with it, this certification will absolutely sneak up on you when you least want it to, and then you go in the classic 3-week audit crunch period where you've got to focus all your effort into this one particular thing. Now, what does that certification look like then? What's the timeline? You know, if I'm looking at this from fresh eyes, or maybe I want to go and I want to start getting certified to the new certification, I've been maybe using the old one, what can we do? Well, we've pretty much given you a very, very high level overview here, which is quite typical of the people we work with. You start off with a scope and a gap assessment, right? When you take on a project like this, you need to understand, what are we dealing with here? What are we not dealing with here? Where does the company currently sit in terms of maturity? What do our processes look like? Are they good? Are they bad? Do we need to replace them? Do we need more people to help with these processes? That first building block is absolutely key to making any progress. And I cannot tell you the amount of times I've dealt with teams that haven't done this part, and they end up taking on a massive amount of work, and half of them end up leaving because they don't want to do this kind of job. And why would they? It's a lot of effort. So that scoping gap assessment is absolutely critical. Next is a risk assessment. You need to have an understanding of a risk library. Yes, this is compliance we're talking about here, but compliance is only useful when it's linked to something. Otherwise, we're going into a checkbox mentality, which, yes, you might sometimes get a certification out of that if you've got a particularly lenient auditor, but I can almost promise you, you're more likely to hit the landmine than you are to avoid it. So understanding your current risk library, having effective owners that know that they own these risks, and understanding what these risks mean to us is really, really quite key. And then next, we go to build our actual information security management system. That needs to be appropriate to your company size and what you're trying to actually do. Again, classic problem of where I see small companies do absolutely crazy ISMSs, and then they can't keep up with it. Somebody leaves, and some poor guy has to pick up the pieces and work with something that's just impossible to work with. Try and keep it sensible. Then is our process afterwards, our audit management. It's really important you've got a consistent process that can be demonstratable, because when we go to then get certified, we need to demonstrate that. And once you have that date booked in with the auditor, you need to be ready. And ideally, you don't want to be going into that with loads and loads to do. So it's always good, just like with everything in life, to keep up to date with your certification. You know, we've all been there, either in university or in just our day-to-day, where leaving something all the way to the end just makes our life difficult, and we don't want to do that. So to keep it high level, to maintain certification, we want to be looking at continuous improvements, automating things where we can, not just assessments really, but automations. We're living in the modern age. Tech is everywhere, the age of AI, etc. We're going to get taken over soon by a bunch of Terminators, who knows? But using automations is absolutely great. Keeping really high data quality is quite key as well. The average tenure for people in risk and compliance is just under 2 years, which is kind of crazy actually, but that means that someone else has to come along, pick up pieces and try and figure out what was done previously. And if that's difficult to do, then the business is going in a very, very scary downward spiral. To help with that, a good internal audit process is absolutely key. An internal audit process you actually carry out is key. And, you know, whilst we all might say we're all doing these fantastic things to keep our company safe, we're doing everything we can always do more. And trying to do more is certainly better than doing less. So how can Stream help? We're going to transition into the demonstration now. But how can Stream help? Well, to keep it very high level, pre-built templates are absolutely quite key. Certainly most of our client base really leverage those to get in quick, make really easy reports that we can all understand and share with auditors. What's quite important is that your tool shouldn't just be good for the people that are using it day to day. I mean, it should, but that's not the only group. We need to make sure that it can be accessible by audit managers and external auditors as well. So that's how we get our certification. Stream as well, we have a full alignment with the Annex A controls, so we can easily link risks to treatment plans. We can demonstrate we're doing something with our actual certification. And another great thing about the platform that we're about to demonstrate is that it allows automation for risk assessment scorings, where we can link threats directly to risk and give scores that matter, right? That are easily understood. The other key thing as well, it's been built, this platform that you're about to see has been built with auditors in mind. So the idea of an auditor coming in, seeing everything, understanding where they have to find X and Y is an absolute dream. So let's get on to Stream. We're going to hopefully seamlessly transition to the Stream platform. So Linda, if you can just double check with me that we can see this okay.
Yep, we can.
Brilliant, that's a great start again. So this is Stream. I'm just going to close my little webinar panel on the right. This is Stream. This is one of the dashboards we've built just to show different control frameworks. And really, this is quite a typical start to a compliance journey. Now, Stream isn't just ISO focused, although that is what we're going to be focusing on today. Quite often you want to link compliance frameworks to other compliance frameworks, and that's very much what we tend to do on this platform too. But from a high level overview, what you're seeing here is an overview of controls. So with ISO 27001 ISMS requirements, for example, in the middle, we can see at a glance, okay, we've got 5 green controls, assumedly deployed quite well. Yellows, they're okay, and then reds, they need to be looked at. So what we're going to do is we're just going to drill down onto one of these 5 good controls. Instead of going from the bad ones, let's start with the good. And that opens up a window where we've just got a list of our controls in the middle and a bunch of other data. But we're going to focus on these controls today. These controls give us a little overview. They tell us why they're green. Many of them are highly deployed. We get some other basic information, where they're linked to in the business, what the name of the control is, the reference number, if they have an owner, when they were updated, etc. But we're going to check out one of these controls and learn a bit more about one. So I've just checked into policy details here, and this has taken me to a record screen. If you work with ISO 27001 or really any control or compliance in your day-to-day, this might seem familiar. On the left, we have essentially a record screen where we capture data / metadata about this particular control and record information. What's quite good about this in this particular platform is that this allows us to, 1, keep a history of how things change, and 2, link these bits of data in configurable fields to workflows, so we know if there's an owner attached to this and the control is overdue, the system will chase that owner up. Or if an owner is from a third party, the system knows to send out a form directly to that owner to reassess the control every 6 months on a loop, something like that, right? So very, very useful. On the right is what we're doing with this particular control once we've got that data. So we get things like a control assessment, which is how we understand deployability of the control. Then we have what asset is this linked to? In this case, to keep it simple, we've got just an ISMS assessment. Any actions that are related to this particular control, whether or not they've got an owner, which they likely will, what status they are, the priority, and if they've been closed. If you're performing ISMS management reviews, which you should be with ISO, you'll also have that linked to here, so we can attach controls directly to those reviews, which is pretty great. Has this control been involved in an external audit? In this case, yes, it has. So again, we can jump straight to that audit there and see everything and how this control is linked to. And we can add lots of other things to this, such as documentation. We can track messages related to this control, or if we want to send this control to an external user, we can do it manually instead of through a workflow here as well. So just to demonstrate how that assessment takes place, appreciate I haven't got all the time in the world, this is all we have to do. So there are many ways you can assess a control in Stream. You can pull them from an external software through an API, imported through some sort of physical documentation that you might have, or you can do it manually in the system, and that's what we can do today. So we've built out a REDS assessment methodology for ISO controls. You don't have to use that in Stream. We can have multiple methodologies, custom ones configured by the user, or perhaps maybe some template ones that we have. Point is, we can do whatever. And we can move this control around, right? Let's say we're reassessing it. The control is the responsibility is no longer allocated. There's very limited evidence. Documentation is published, but out of date now. And now it's only effective across the ISMS in half of the potential cases. We can submit that, and our control deployment tanks now to 18%, which has got a very clever workflow behind it to give us that number. The assessor changes a stream, so we can track that again for an audit history. And we have an assessment date as well. If I added comments, it would also log those comments as well. And we can make things like that mandatory, which is pretty good. Now, what you can do with this is, of course, when you go to build reports, this is now going to be an outlier. When you go look at history of controls, this will be an outlier. And if you have any workflows built around, perhaps maybe if a control falls below a certain deployment, which is really common when we're doing integrations actually, this may also trigger actions, notifications, or next steps within the system too. So lots of great things we can do with this as a platform. Really, it's a management system for controls, which is pretty great. To look at it again, top down, what you might notice as well, these dashboards are real time. So if you have lots of people, this will change. But just because I've gone back, we can then see our fifth green control is now gone. We have another red control in the mists. Oh dear, not great. But what if we want to demonstrate that? We can do that through various sort of methods in Stream, one of which is through some of our template reports, which all of our user base gets. For example, we might want to demonstrate our reporting through a control summary. All we would do is find where we want to report, find our control standard that we want to report on, press show report, and it will generate a report that shows us our overview of controls quite at a glance. And of course, we can set thresholds on here as well to understand what we want to accept and what we don't want to accept. We can export this, etc., and put this on our reporting, which is pretty good. Another pretty common report that we tend to see a lot of our client base using is the control status screen as well. This essentially just gives tabular views, right, which then gets exported maybe to Excel, or perhaps maybe this is also used as a way just to track everything that's currently ongoing in our control summaries, right? So we can understand which controls at glance aren't deployed. If you have dependencies, they can be put in here too. And it gives us a nice little tabular overview as opposed to something more high level, which is pretty useful. Now, I have gone on quite a lot, covered a lot of ground here today. Absolutely, if there are any questions, please ask or get in touch. I'm happy to continue this demonstration with anybody that's interested. But I think what we're going to do now is move over back to Linda and look at some questions if we've got any.
Thank you, Daniel. That was very insightful. I have one thing I want to just clarify is that everybody will be sent a link to this webinar so they can rewatch it tomorrow. So just want to clarify that. And I have a question here. So we'll start with this one. I do have another question that's just come in as well. So we'll see. I'm just worried about time, but let's go for it. So the first question is, what is the scope change?
Scope assessment, perhaps?
I
It might be in
believe so.
reference to.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very important to when you start with anything in compliance is understanding why. Why are you trying to be compliant, and what are you trying to make or demonstrate compliance to? With ISO 20, particularly actually broadly, with information security, quite often we do everything at once. That causes a massive issue in terms of workload and resource, when in reality what seems to work best, certainly with our customer base, is taking things in bite-sized chunks, making things manageable, then moving on to the next step forward. So it's very, very important, as I say, you have an understanding of why you want to be compliant, and what needs to be compliant as well.
Thank you for that, Daniel. I think we might just get one more in. Another one popped in. No. Okay. How can I encourage my colleagues and board to take actions from internal audit findings to avoid them becoming overdue?
Yeah. So it's kind of like both an accountability and a reporting question. So in terms of accountability, having a clear understanding of risk owners and control owners is really, really helpful. Not only does that make your life easier when it comes to notifications, but people will always react much faster if their names are attached to something, and it's demonstrable that it's attached to something. So that's really quite key. And in terms of reporting, being able to translate ISMS metrics and compliance metrics to business objectives, whilst quite intimidating at first, once that's fully understood, you start to drive investment to your teams, which allows for increased resources, of course, but it also gives a bit of common ground in perhaps maybe the world of business and the world of information security, which are unfortunately very, very opposite, although they shouldn't be, but there is definitely a barrier there.
Thank you for that. I'm not sure if we caught all of that. The internet seems to just had a little glitch here, but hopefully we did. Okay, right. Well, we've got 2 minutes left, so I'm just gonna. I think we're going to wrap up here. I don't think we've got time for any more questions, but I just wanted to say thank you very much, Daniel, and thank you for your time attending, everyone, today. We hope you've enjoyed it, and please get in touch with us if you'd like more information about Acuity Risk Management and our Cyber GRC platform stream. Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye. Bye.
Bye bye.